This is Lori Boucher with Painted Heart Market, and today we're going to be watching video 2 of my do-it-yourself Halloween sign. You can look in YouTube for video 1, and there's also a video 3 after this one, or you can visit my website, paintedheartmarket.com, and you'll find all of the videos posted there, as well as how you can purchase the stencil sets that I used in this project. Thanks for joining. So our next step is going to be to apply some stencils to our board that we've antiqued and now painted black and done a little bit of pre-sanding on. So I wanted to take just a moment and show you the stencils that I'm going to be using. So if you noticed in my first picture at my introduction, I indicated that there would be, you could see in the design, there were these little kind of fancy frilly things that were going to be at the top and bottom of my sign. So I'm just going to lay those now there. To look at these, you notice again I have transfer tape. I have this backing, which is just like waxy paper, and in between the two are this blue stencil material. I've cut it out in a filigree design that has some bats on it. And I've already weeded it, which means I've removed all of the stencil material except for what I want to leave so it blocks the black paint from turning orange in a minute. And I will put it down anywhere I have this stencil material. My black paint will stay untouched, and I'll have an orange coating on the top, and it's going to give a really cool look. So those are the decorative things on the end. And then let me stretch this one out. This is the long one. So this is the stencil that actually says trick or treat. And again, you can see it's pretty long. It's about 60 or so inches. I have my paper backing. I have my transfer tape, which is just clear sticky tape. And then I have these blue stencil letters underneath. And this is a process where I've already painted it black. I'm going to use these stencils to block off that black paint. So when I apply orange paint over top of it, it's going to protect my black paint. When I'm finished with the painting of the orange and I pull off these blue letters, then I'm going to see these nice sharp black letters shining through, and it'll look really cool. So these are the 3 stencils. As I mentioned before, the stencils I do make. I cut them myself, and they're on my own designs, and they will be available on my website, paintedheartmarket.com. You can purchase the stencils. It comes in one kit together for this project, and it'll also have detailed instructions with it, so you can look for that. I did want to point out on this particular long stencil, you notice there's one right here in the middle that's a little different. So I have trick at the top, treat at the bottom, and I put or in the middle. And so you notice wherever there's blue, I know that's going to protect the black paint. And where there's not blue, orange is going to come through. So orange is going to come through all around the letters, but not the letters. In the centerpiece here, the word or is actually going to turn out to be orange, because as we're painting orange on top, that's opened up, it's a negative. And so the orange will actually come through in those places. So you'll be able to see that as we move forward. So that is kind of a description of the stencils. Again, those are available on my website, paintedheartmarket.com. And I'm going to spread them all back out, and then we're going to go through the process of preparing them next. Well, so far we've been working painting our project, and we're going to take a pause in the painting process, and we're going to move towards putting our stencils on there. And in the previous steps, I went through the stencils. The first thing that we want to do is prepare our stencil, and I'm going to do that by burnishing it. You can actually use your finger to burnish it. All it means is that you're taking and you're really pressing and rubbing on the stencil so that the edges and it adheres well. And in this part of the process, I'm trying to get it to adhere to this clear sticky transfer tape so that
when I want to lift it up, I can. I'm actually going to use a popsicle stick or tongue depressor here and just give it a good rub. Notice I'm not using the edge, I'm using it flat. It just gives me a good connection. And you can actually, as you're looking at the stencil when you're doing it yourself, you'll notice that the air is kind of moving out from under this tape because it actually turns a little bit darker color. So I'm going to go the entire length of this long wording by burnishing it. Then I'll also go back in and burnish on these filigrees. I'll also burnish those also. So while I'm doing the scrubbing and the rubbing, I'm going to let you pause for just a minute and I'll come back. Now I've completed burnishing my stencil, and I'm going to go through the process of transferring, because the blue letters are actually stuck to this liner or backing right now, and I want to transfer them to where they're stuck to this transfer tape, the sticky tape on top. And the best way to do that is for me to actually flip it over, and I'm going to start the process of pulling the backing off, which will allow the blue letter to stay with the sticky transfer tape. Now, there's a little bit of a secret when you start transferring stencils to the transfer tape, and that is if you pull the backing straight up, you tend to pull that blue letter off of this sticky tape. I want it to stay on the tape. So instead of pulling up, I'm going to slide the backing off, and if I see something not staying like I need it to, like just then, I'm going to just push it back a little bit, grab it with my fingers. There's the tip of that T is wanting to act up a little bit, and I'm just going to pull it off. So there I've got the T. I'm actually going to continue down. I'm not going to pause the camera because I think this process actually, seeing it a little bit, helps you understand what to expect when you're removing these letters off. And see, there's one of those little curly cues, which I think are adorable on this font that I used, but they're small pieces, and so they like to pull up, and I need them to stay on this piece of tape. So right there, the edge of that letter was coming out. I'm really kind of coming off of this paper a little straighter than I would like to. I'm going to go back and see if I can pull a little more on an angle. Sometimes that helps a little bit. See, that did a lot better. It's kind of, each one is unique, and you have to just adjust and fix it as you go along. See, there's that curly cue. Those little guys like to come up, and you just have to get them stuck down, and then they'll cooperate with you. But if you pull too hard and you have part of your blue stencil material coming with you and part staying on the tape, it's a recipe for tearing your stencil. And if you tear this stencil, that's going to create a hole. Anytime there's a hole, we're not going to block this orange paint from going through, and it's going to interfere with how we want our letters to look when this project is complete. So I'm just moving along. I'm going on a little bit of an angle more than I was, just to try to coax a few of these edges down. You notice every once in a while my hand kind of sticks. Now this is that oval that I'm working on now. I'm going to actually slide myself down a little bit so you can see it. It has this cursive letter. It's a little bit different font right in the center. And I've got to make sure that the point that makes the cursive R and the little circle that completes the cursive O stay in there. And that area is blank because I do want the orange paint to go through there. The oval is going to be what we block out and leave the black. So it'll look really interesting, and if you look at that original picture, you'll see it on there, how it looks. Just gives it a little character. I think anytime you can do something on a project that makes it not look or feel flat, it just gives your project that little extra surprise, extra something that makes yours a little bit special. So having two different color letters on there was interesting and attractive to me. So there I go. I'm getting up here. Trick or treat is almost done. I want it to be more treat than trick. So I'm just being patient with this process. Keeping everybody smooth and my stencils, all the edges stuck down as well as possible. I'm going to just work with the lettering first, and then I'll transfer these filigrees to their transfer tape in a few minutes, but I don't want to have that much sticky stuff exposed at one time. I'd like to deal with it as I can. Alright, if my spelling is right, backwards, I've got one more letter here, which is a T, and I'm at the end. This one is acting a little bit nutty, so just moving again, making my adjustments so that I get the results that I want ultimately. And there we go. So now that I have done this, I have this piece laying on top of my board upside down. Non-sticky side is against the board. Sticky side is facing up. The blue letters are stuck on the tape. They have a sticky side facing up. And I've got this piece of paper, this long piece of paper that I've pulled off now, successfully transferring these stencils to this piece of tape. And really that piece of paper has no value to me now other than maybe I want to use it for, I don't know, painting on top of or something. So we'll stop here, and the next video will show you how to transfer. So we just finished transferring the blue stencils from that paper backing to this sticky transfer tape. It's currently laying upside down with the non-sticky side on the board and the sticky side facing up. And now I've got to place this on my board correctly. Now I want it to go down the middle. So I want to look at the letters, make sure that's nice and even. I know that I want to have this little filigree guy at the bottom. I have one that I'm going to put at the top. So I want to make sure that I got enough room for that, and I've got my letters all in there. So I'm just going to put myself a little marker here. Nothing that's sticking, but I know that I want the bottom of that T to come in somewhere right around where that tongue depressor is. So I'm going to flip this over. And at this point, because we haven't rubbed it really hard on the board, it's going to be a little bit forgiving as we need to adjust it and move it around. I don't want it to stick to itself, so I'm going to keep that from happening. And I'll bring the camera down here in a second. It's going to be a little bit hard for you just to see the placement of this because of the fact that we've got the blue on the black. So let me see if I can get it closer. Now you can kind of see the letters are sitting there, and I've laid it. It's ready for me to now go through the process of transferring. Now we transferred it from the backing to the transfer tape. Now I'm going to transfer it from the transfer tape to the wood. And I'm going to use pretty much the same process. I'm just going to first go through, rub it with my hands, just get everybody down smoothly. It's just a soft touch that I'm using so that I don't have any big air bubbles in there. And then I'm going to go either with my finger. I really want them to stick, so I'm actually going to go through and burnish again. There's that term again. I'm going to burnish these letters off of this transfer tape onto this wooden board. And what I want to make sure is that the edges of these letters seal very good, because they are going to serve as a block to prevent orange paint from going through. And when we're through with this process, I get the letters adhered down, I paint over top of them with orange, and then I peel the letters back up. What I'm going to find is my letters are all beautifully on my sign in a nice sharp black. So I'm just going to continue this whole length again burnishing. It's a pretty simple process. I don't think you want to watch me do it the whole time. So I will pause the camera and then come back and show you the finished product after I've completed it. I've now finished burnishing these first set of stencils, these letters, and I'm going to go through the process of transferring them onto my board. All I'm going to do is take this sticky tape, this big, enormous piece of clear tape, and I'm going to pull it off, leaving the letters behind. They're sitting right here on my board. They're going to serve as a block from the orange paint that I'm fixing to paint on this board from getting through to this section of the board that I want to be left black. So again, instead of pulling up, which will pull my letter off the board, I'm going to pull my transfer tape across. It's actually rolling off pretty good. I really do think that if you find the right angle, you tend to not pull it as much. If something was to start coming up on me, I'm going to just push it down with my hand and get it going again. I'm going to go smoothly all the way down the board. And I'll show you an up-close shot in just a second so you can see where these letters are now adhering to my black board. All right, so I've removed this big long sticky piece, and I'm actually going to take it over here and just put it out of my way. It's long and floppy, and let me just show you real quick, and then I'll go to the other letters, the other designs. You can see that I've got these letters all on there. I'm actually going to, I know it sounds so redundant, but go back over these letters one more time. As I'm transferring them, sometimes you can pull the edges up. So just take your finger, run around all of the edges, just feel for how, if there's any little bumps or anything under there. It's amazing how sensitive your fingers can be. You can really catch a little air pocket in that might be sitting there just waiting to leak some orange paint through to this black letter. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen. I love all the projects now that use a rustic look and layers of paint. I tend to like to hang on to things. I've been given some things in my family, and I like to continue to decorate with them. It's fun to me to have something that looks like it's been around for a while. So when I can create something new that can follow suit with that, I love to do it. And layering different layers of paint together, different colors, that is, if you took wallpaper off an old house, you'd see all the previous wallpaper and all the previous paint. So in my projects, I kind of like to have that same feel where I can see some history of somebody that was there before me. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm going to quickly go ahead and remove the backing. I almost did it the wrong way. Off of these back filigrees that I have. I'm going to be honest with you, they're going to be a little pestier as you're working with them. There is a ton of detail in here. It's not extremely small, but if I'm not careful and pull this backing off in the right way, what's going to happen is I'm going to tear some of these details, and then I'll have that situation with any tear in my stencil is a place where paint is going to leak. So I'm just going to move slow, push it back down if it wants to come up. Things like the little edges for the bat's wings, they tend to want to come up. So there we go. I've got that piece of paper pulled off. There's my little bat stencil right there, and you can see all that degree. I'm going to put them one upside down and one right side up, And so I'm going to place it here just a couple of inches below my words. I'm smoothing it on again with my hand, and I'm going to go back with my tongue depressor, burnishing it really good because this does have a lot of little edges, and those edges are where that paint likes to roll up in there. And then I'm going to also transfer this one just by, again, smoothly pulling at an angle this sticky transfer tape off of that back section. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. I'm going to pause the video now and then we'll come back in just a moment. I went ahead and completed the application of both of the bat filigrees, one at the bottom, one at the top. All my letters have been applied, and in addition to that, I've burnished everything. So I feel pretty confident, but it's always nice to be extra sure, right? Because I really don't want this orange paint to leak through to my black letters that I am, in essence, masking off with these stencils. So I'm going to take one precautionary measure. I'm going to pick up my black paint again. I'm just going to get a light coating on my roller. And all I'm going to do is lightly roll over these stencils with this black paint. And what I'm trying to accomplish is, if something is going to leak through this stencil, it's going to be the first coat of paint. And so if I apply black as the first coat of paint over these stencils, it actually goes right in there, and where it would leak, it's going to leak, but I'm not going to see it because it's going to be black on black. And as that little leaky paint dries, what I end up with is a very tightly sealed stencil. So it works. You just have to really kind of map out your combinations of paints and make sure you got them in the right order. This project, I've designed it where the background was black, the foreground's going to be orange, so I am using black to go over these letters. I'm going over the letters, I'm going over the bat filigree, I'm even going over this little part in the middle because there's no harm in this. I'm going to come back over this oval section. If you remember that in my design, I'm going to come back over it with orange, and it's going to fill in the word "or" in orange. So those letters are actually going to be orange instead of black. So I'm going to just continue on down the path here, putting this light coat of paint on this board. And I'll join you back in just a second when that's finished and dried.
Thank you for joining me for video 3 of our Painted Heart Market Halloween sign. You can watch the previous video and the third video on YouTube, or go to paintedheartmarket.com to see all videos as well as purchase the stencils used in this project.